Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Jen Birchfield, your coach, and we are in week 8 of Pure Health. This week is focused on healthier eating guidelines. So before we move forward, I love to check in with where we have been and where we are headed. I'd like you to take a couple of minutes to think through these questions. Earlier dinners, what has changed? We think about our measuring stick for early or later dinner. We think about how we wanted to obtain better energy the next day. What have you done so far that's changed in this course? Because if we can look back and we can measure our progress, sometimes we get kind of lost in all the muck and mire of what we're trying to accomplish, and we forget, wow, look what I've actually accomplished. Instead of eating at 8 p.m. every night, I'm eating at 7:30 consistently, and that's a huge improvement. So what has changed so far in your early or later dinners? In your bedtime routine, what has changed? Are you actually giving yourself something yummy and delicious to do before bedtime? The habit of start the day right. What has changed there? Are you waking with a better perspective? Are you hydrating? Have you become PC? Breath body practices, getting in 20 minutes every morning of some kind of movement, preferably before we eat. And I know a lot of you have switched some of that, where you were accustomed to eating a big meal before you did any sort of morning workout, and now you have changed that part of your routine. And just notice how you're feeling in your workouts. Are you able to be productive? Are you getting a lot of that prana flow? What are you noticing from getting that prana? Self-massage, getting deep into our tissues. Are you noticing the emotional body peel back? Are you noticing new things about your body that you maybe didn't know before, like areas that are tight or places that you were holding tension that you weren't aware of? Meditation. How are you doing with sitting in silence? It's probably only been a week since you viewed that video, and since we have met by phone over sitting in silence. If you've already committed to a 1-minute practice, that's a great commitment, and you're already doing a lot. What kind of changes have you noticed from just that 1-minute commitment? And up next, of course, are our healthier eating guidelines. Review from where we're at. So our measuring sticks, what are you noticing from all these different habits that you have put into place? How is your energy? How is your sleep? What are your emotions like? If you noticed that before you started this course you had a tendency towards anxiety or depression, have you noticed those things dissipating? Are you noticing just simply more joy, more ability to feel tapped in to where you're at, not needing so much to always be engaged in the mind body, but sometimes just being comfortable, being tapped in emotionally and in with the physical body? How is your focus? How is your concentration throughout the day? And we're in week 8, and so the tendency now may be to begin to check out. And I'd like for you to remain checked in. Start to have awareness over where you might be hitting that upper limit. So upper limiting is, I know I've mentioned it before now, but upper limiting is when you find a way to disengage because you are discovering new, you're breaking through your own glass ceilings. You're discovering new edges and new growth edges. And sometimes what we'll do when we're in those positions and it feels a little uncomfortable to have so much growth, Sometimes we engage in some kind of upper limiting activity, meaning that we are not allowing ourselves to continue to break through those glass ceilings, or we're not allowing ourselves to gently come back down from that new edge and explore a little bit more cautiously as we grow, which is a great way to handle rapid growth. So you might, engage in and going out, partying or drinking. You might engage in some old food or, major caffeine intake, something like that. You might engage in, or how about not engage? You might take a whole week off of doing all the habits and feel like, oh, I'm fine, I've got this covered, and you start to slip. So taking this time to check in gives you those reminders of how far you've come, and hopefully helps you to stay engaged in the rest of our course as we proceed through 8, 9, and 10. And trust me when I tell you, you don't want to miss 10. 10 is living easefully, and that's the whole reason we're here. So don't check out now. So moving into healthier eating, as a reminder, eating healthier is a trajectory. We never arrive here. It's not a goal. We simply become more wise at nourishing the complexity of who we are with the simplicity of our informed habits. I didn't mention plant-based eating when we were talking about where we've been, because it kind of wraps in with this. And the reason that we do another whole week oriented towards our eating habits is because this is one of the things that takes that much effort. We had earlier, later dinner, then we had plant-based diet, and here we are towards the end of the course, and we're focusing on what else can we do to improve our eating. So first we focused on the time we ate, then we focused on what we eat, and now we're going to focus on how we eat. When, what, how. This approach from all angles is going to help you stay on that trajectory, improving small steps over time as we continue to grow together. One great thing to do whenever we are intaking food or considering intaking food is a body scan. And I've taken you through a body scan a couple of times. Kate has this handout as one of the checklists that's available to you, and it's a little bit more in depth than the way that we have approached it in the past. So you can ask yourself these questions, and when you ask yourself these questions, you don't want to do it with your brain. You want to feel in with your body. Quite often when we are approaching eating, we are engaging with our brain, and we're asking the brain to answer the question, what does the body need right now? And the reality is that the brain has nothing to do with it. The body has all the intelligence to let you know. It's reversed. The body should be letting the brain know instead of the brain telling the body. And so if we can do these body scans really regularly and really feel into truly where is our body at, we can nourish ourselves a great deal better. So the questions are, how do I feel? Where is my breath moving? So take a big 3-part breath, inhaling in through the nose, down the throat, in the chest, in the belly, and exhale. And notice, where did it stick? And as you return to your normal breathing, notice, are there places the breath isn't naturally getting to? How does my belly feel? Does it feel hard? Does it feel squishy? Is it soft? Is it sticky? Is it full? Is it light? How does my heart feel? Is it soft? Is it hard? Is it squishy? Is it sticky? We can use a lot of the same adjectives to describe the heart because when there's a lot of emotional the heart will feel sticky. You'll feel a heaviness in your chest. Whereas when you're in a state of joy or in a state really of sattva, which is that ease state that's in between the really heavy state and the really fast moving state, when you're in sattva, your heart feels at ease. Your heart feels light. There's not anything weighing on you. If you are a female, how does my womb feel? How does my brain feel? Heavy, foggy, erratic, crazy? How does my back feel? Check in with those big, long muscles. See if there's any place that you're holding tension. And what would help me feel better? So again, a lot of times we're not scanning our body and we're not checking in with the truth of how we actually feel. We reach for various different tastes in order to satiate, whatever we perceive we may be feeling at that time. And what would help me feel better is often has nothing to do with food at all. Often it's jumping on the trampoline for 5 minutes or doing 30 jumping jacks or jogging in place for a few minutes or taking a 3-minute meditation break, sit and breathe, do some alternate nostril breathing. Any of these things are excellent for moving stuck energy. And you may find that when you begin to tap into the body, that food is not it at all. This Healthier Eating Simple checklist is available to you in your resources. I want you to print it. I want you to have it with you. We're getting ready to go through this one by one. So, tips for healthier eating. Be hungry. And that sounds crazy, but before you came to this course, you probably were eating out of habit, eating out of ritual, eating because you were bored. So we want to veer away from that. And what I often recommend, especially if you have a propensity to overeating or to emotional eating, is that you allow the first wave of hunger to come and go. That you sit with that hunger while it subsides, because it always will. And you wait for the second wave of hunger to rise before you go ahead and you feed yourself. Don't confuse thirst and hunger. Drink room temperature water between meals to clarify this relationship. A lot of times, as you know, we're just thirsty. And if you satiate your need for hydration, you often will satiate the desire to eat when it's not time to eat. Fast on water in between meals. You guys know that in Ayurveda, it is central to developing that strong Agni, the strong digestive fire, is allowing the fire to rest. So if you sit there and you just continually throw more and more and more wood and fuel on top of the fire, eventually you smother the fire. There's not enough time for the air to get in there, for the fire to burn the wood. And so that concept, we want to take that into how frequently we're eating. And we want to create a good long fast in between meals. 3 hours is a minimum, 4 hours is preferable, depending on your dosha and your body type and what you can handle. So preferably, you're just drinking water, not tea, nothing with sweetener in it, in between meals to allow the space for your Agni to grow, to allow the space for digestion to happen, for the movement to happen, allow peristalsis to happen, and to fully digest your meal so you're not continually having things in each different stage of digestion. Be ready to receive, not emotionally distracted. So if you are in a place where you can't take a moment to feel into your food and feel into yourself and know, yes, I'm empty. Yes, I need food and sustenance right now. I'm not eating because I'm trying to temper emotions. I'm not eating because I want to stop feeling the way that I'm feeling. That's when you want to take in a meal. And you want to have that moment of gratitude. You want to notice the prana and the life force in your food before you take it in. So the closer your food is to the earth, the more prana it has in it. And when we're noticing these relationships, when we're having the moment to settle in, to notice where our body is, to notice what our food is getting ready to bring us, and to be able to take it in without being distracted, we're going to get so much more out of the food. The food is going to become more available to us because our cells, our chemical makeup is more ready to break down that food and take it in. So pause and experience gratitude. Love your food and those who prepared it before it becomes your body. Not like this lady. You don't just want to chow down on everything in front of you. You want to pause to experience the gratitude, like I said, to, hold a hand over your food, to hold a hand over your heart or your stomach, to feel into the space that you're in emotionally, being ready to receive and not emotionally distracted, so that you can tap into the prana, the life force of the food, and you can tap into how that food is getting ready to convert into your tissues. So the reason we're so concerned about Agni, about that digestive fire, is because it is what converts prana, life force and food, into ojas. And ojas is the smallest building blocks of our body's tissues. You may remember when I talked about in self-massage, when I talked about the 7 tissues of the body. So the most subtle tissues are being created by the presence of ojas. And if we're emotionally distracted when we consume our food, instead of creating ojas, we're going to create ama, which is toxins. And the food will not digest properly. And you'll often notice if you're upset when you eat that you end up with a bellyache, and that's because your food is not breaking down properly. Your body is not able to assimilate that prana and turn it into ojas to build tissue. Starting out your day with great nutrition, great plant-based foods that will set up your palate to crave the right things. So if you start out your day with coffee, for example, you are going to disrupt that critical prana to ojas cycle. And the reason that's going to be disrupted is because you're putting in acid first, you're changing the Agni, you're changing that digestive fire with acid, and your body isn't taking in prana as its first act of digestion for the day. So when we take in chia porridge, we use steel-cut oats and use good warming spices. When we take in green smoothie, it sets up the palate to be tapped into what the body wants and needs instead of to turn on the brain. The excitotoxins in coffee turn on the brain, and it immediately says, okay, brain, take over our thinking about food and digestion for the day. We want the body's natural intelligence to be the source for what we are consuming for the day. So we want to turn on that natural intelligence by turning on green first thing in the morning. Remember to eat a lovely, satisfying lunch. Try to take time out for lunch. Give yourself at least 20 minutes to eat your lunch. 30 is preferable because you can then eat, you can sit for a few minutes, and you can take a 5-minute walk after you've consumed your lunch. And make it something that is your most nutrient, I say most nutrient dense, but really I mean, I want your lunch to have this really large profile of nutrients, lots of colors on your plate, and the majority of your proteins and fats should be taken at lunch. Notice the taste of your food. Notice the flavors, how they change as they mix with your physiology. So in the wintertime, we're all going to be naturally a little more vata because we're all being influenced by the vata that's around us. And so if you take things that are very cooling during the wintertime, you may notice that your digestion becomes a little bit more difficult. Maybe you veer more towards constipation or gas. If you're taking raw foods at that time, you might notice that they're not as palatable. You can't taste them as well. But just the effect of adding warming spices or of adding some good quality fats, of making those salads into marinated salads so that the taste actually changes. And you'll notice that, it's the addition of the lemon or the small amount of vinegar will change the way that you perceive the food and change the way that it sets in your belly and makes you feel. Chew your food. And we like to say, drink your solids and chew your liquids. I used to really have to chew my green smoothie because I didn't have a high-speed blender, and I always thought, well, at least I'm chewing my liquids. And now, because my green smoothie is able, it's really pureed fine, I do have to really consciously slow down with it and still take a seat when I'm going to consume it, take it in slowly, hold it in my mouth, let it mix with my saliva. And that's why we want to kind of chew our liquids. We want to have that enzymatic digestive function that starts with saliva mixing with your food. That needs to happen. And your solids need to get fully masticated and broken down, and again mix with your saliva before you take into your belly for digestion. So if you have a tendency to be an overeater, focus on getting full with more senses than just your tongue. Most people who overeat eat fast. And what you're looking for is like this flavor or that flavor or that flavor to satiate me. And a lot of times, because our brains typically in the standard American diet are so geared towards the sweet, sour, and salty tastes, we will tend to go, oh, not full yet, and eat more sweet, sour, and salty foods. So start to notice like, what does that smell like, and how does that make me feel? What is the texture of this food in my mouth? And if I take enough of these greens, you really want to start with a big green salad for every single meal. And if I start with this big green salad, how does that roughage make me feel? If I really get into chewing it and turn on that beginning of that satiation process, how does that make me feel? Notice the fullness and get comfortable with 70% being as full as we ever want to be. So if you're used to stuffing yourself full, it's going to take some time cutting back the size of your portions before you get comfortable that I don't have to be ultra full in order to be satiated. The other idea, if you're somebody who really needs to lose weight, but you're not wanting to decrease the amount of food that you're taking, again, to have this big green salad before you eat, but don't use any fats. Just use an orange juice based dressing, which will help turn on that bile production. Eat only as much and as frequently as your body needs. Be honest. Wait for true hunger to arise. Like I said, waiting for maybe that second round of hunger before you go to put food in your mouth. If you are a Vata type, you generally will need to eat 3 to 5 times a day. If you are a Pitta type, 3 times a day is plenty. And Kapha types can eat 1 to 2 times a day. Kapha types can do long-term periods of fasting without any repercussion. So, they have much slower digestion. So eating just 1 or 2 meals is plenty. And with the idea that we've been discussing of doing some intermittent fasting, having getting a good long break between dinner and breakfast, but also a break between your meals. So even though I'm a Pitta type, I can do 2 meals a day as long as they're sizable meals and the calorie consumption is the same. And I can bring those into an 8-hour eating period and get a good 16-hour fast in between. As a Pitta type, I don't find I can do that all the time. But I can do it 3 or 4 days a week without any issue. Eat a light dinner, leaving time to digest before bed. Relax after eating. After a big meal, rest for 5 to 15 minutes and then walk to aid digestion. You really want to move just lightly after dinner or after lunch so that your body can digest your food. Remember to eat your ecosystem. We want to be in touch with that connection economy, eating as close to home as possible. Eating as close to home as possible means there's going to be a lot more prana in your food because it won't have traveled a long distance. A great deal of produce is gassed on its way from, it's picked when it's unripe, and it's gassed on its way from deep dark Peru to here. So it's really not full of prana. It was picked before its prime. And now a lot of times it's getting close to being past its prime. And some of these fruits and vegetables are stored for months even. So while that might be okay for a root vegetable, it's definitely not okay for greens or for fruits. And so the closer you can eat to your ecosystem, the more prana you're going to receive from your food. Learn about your constitution and eat for your individual needs. So most of us have heard the Western idea of ecto, meso, and endomorph. We're going to relate this to Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So the thin, lanky bodies are typically Vata bodies. The Pitta bodies are typically real medium. You can add or subtract 5 pounds with ease. And the Kapha bodies tend to be more like the endomorph, the just thicker tissue, thicker muscle, thicker skin even. Good, strong connective tissue in the joints. And like I said, these body types need different food intake. So you should still be regular. A Vata type will tend to eat very scantily and eat many, many times a day, sometimes 5, 6, 7 times a day. And if we can pull that back to 4 actual meals that are cooked and contain fat, then we're balancing Vata. And that Vata person is going to become less airy and erratic and be able to attune more energy to other things because they're not constantly grabbing for the next crunchy munchy meal. So in Ayurveda, we have 6 tastes, and we want to focus on bringing all 6 tastes into every meal in order for the brain to register satiation. So the easiest way to think about the 6 tastes is that each one has a different chemical makeup. And that if your body and brain can get to taste each one of the 6 tastes in any given meal, your body's going to register that it's satiated much more quickly than it will if you're relying on quantity of food and the taste of sweet, sour, and salty, which tend to be our predominant tastes in the standard American diet. So to give you a quick rundown, sweet tends to be the tastes that are not just sugar, but also most of our information-containing foods like our meats and our carbohydrates. They tend to be, it balances Vata, so it tends to be things that maybe we crave when we're wanting to be emotionally brought down, like when we're way airy, we want to be brought down. So you think about your comfort foods. The sour taste is going to be your sour fruits, like the citrus fruits, and also sour cherries, sour apples. And again, it balances Vata. It enhances Pitta and Kapha. So when you see those, that minus and that plus on the slide, it tells you that the minus tells you it brings Vata into check. And the plus tells you it exacerbates the effects of Pitta and Kapha in the sour taste there. In salty we tend to think about, we don't want to think so much about table salt as we want to think about the taste of the ocean. And so seaweed would be a really good example of a good pranic salty taste. Again, it balances Vata, but increases Pitta and Kapha. There's a mistake on this. I see it here in front of me, the pungent flavor. Pungent increases Pitta because it's heating. So it should be VP plus and Kapha minus, because it does bring Kapha into check because Kapha is so cold and wet. So the pungent flavor is going to be your really heating spices like cayenne, garlic, onions, anything that has a really strong forward taste is going to be considered pungent. Astringent is going to be the things that tend to have a drying effect on the tongue, like the tannins in tea, grapes, cranberries, some beans. There are a couple of nuts that fall into the astringent category. And then bitter is going to be all of your greens, and bitter has a really cooling effect. So the astringent taste has a calming and pacifying effect on Pitta and Kapha, but increases Vata because it's drying. The bitter taste, because it's cooling, has and also drying, it has a positive, meaning it pacifies Pitta and Kapha, but it increases the effects of Vata. So you can play with this a little bit. A really good resource on this is on Ayurveda.com. Again, that's Vasant Lad's website. I've referred you there before. And there's a beautiful resource that's broken down by dosha and by food. So there's a 6-page PDF that says, hey, if you're Vata, you should favor all these foods, and it says beverages and spices and everything broken down, and you should decrease your use of these foods and these spices and these beverages, etc. And so it just gives you a really easy way to start to integrate some of the 6 tastes into your diet. But even though you may want to favor some things and do less of other things, because I'm Pitta, I'm always going to put green into my food. Every meal is going to have some kind of green in it so that I can always be cooling my system a little bit. Even though you want to favor certain things, you always want to have a little bit of all 6 tastes in order for your brain to register satiation. So moving on to the idea of Agni, and that's the digestive fire. You remember I said that we want to cultivate a good strong Agni, because if we don't have a good strong Agni, we can't convert prana, we can't convert our food into ojas, into tissue. So is your Agni balanced? How are you going to know? You're going to know if your tongue, when you stick it out first thing in the morning, is your tongue a healthy pink, or does it have a bunch of white thick gunk on it? Do you pulse between authentic hunger and deep satiation? So remember that pulsation, the spanda we talked about in the past? You want to be able to move between those 2 extremes without going, oh, I'm so hungry, or I'm way over full. Eating sporadically and without rhythm is a sign that your Agni is out of whack. You poop every morning after drinking your water. If not, if your Agni is out of whack, you tend to bloat, have diarrhea if it's too high, or have constipation and gas if it's too low. I have great consistent energy throughout the day without the use of stimulants. You shouldn't need, you might choose to have a coffee now and then, but you shouldn't need to have it. Or if you're feeling that you need a lot of excitotoxins in order to make it through the day, you're using chocolate, you're using other things, maybe you're still attached to smoking as an excitotoxin, any of those things are a sign that your Agni is out of balance. Here are ways to get your Agni into tip-top shape. Eat 2 to 3 meals a day. So the less you eat, again, the more chance your Agni has to expand, the fire has a chance to build and become stronger in between meals. Eat on schedule. So if you're eating at the same time every day, your body knows to go ahead and send that bile at those times of day, and your body is ready to consume food at those times of day. Have only hot water between meals. Make your lunch the main event and dinner a big non-event. Eat when hungry. Notice how good it feels to eat when you are hungry. If you eat emotionally, notice the sensations around eating when hunger isn't present. That is your inner intelligence waking up. And eat before dark. So Agni goes down with the sun and is blazing by noon. When the sun is highest in the sky, our Agni is highest in their body. And even Western medicine supports that with bile production. So just know that as we've talked about over and over and over again, nighttime is a terrible time to eat. When the sun is down, your body should be shutting down, not taking in big quantities of food. We've worked with this worksheet before, the small steps worksheet. You have a desired new behavior and then a Kaizen suggestion. So we have multiple different behaviors here. One that I haven't mentioned during this lecture that is super important is sitting to eat or drink. When you're standing, your body is not in the digestive organs are physically not in the place that they need to be in order to most optimally take in food. Also, when you stand, you are in the beginning of fight or flight. And so if you consume food while you're standing, your body says, there's a reason I have to be eating while I'm standing. I'm getting ready to run. And you'll notice that, like when you stand and eat, you'll notice that you have a tendency to shovel more than you do if you sit. So if there's one Kaizen step that I would love for everybody to take this week, it may just be sitting before you consume anything. And you can Kaizen that by, take the first sip while sitting, or take the first few bites while sitting. And then if you just absolutely have to be up and moving, at least you have noticed the difference between how it felt to be sitting versus how it feels to be standing. Eat at a table instead of in front of the TV or computer. Again, we know that the screens are vata enhancing. We don't want vata and upward moving motion to be predominant when we're trying to create a downward moving flow. Stop snacking. Your blood sugar will adjust. It may not be comfortable at first. Stop snacking. Eat more slowly and enjoy your food, actually chewing the food. So the Kaizen suggestion would be to savor the first bite of every meal. Eat during daylight hours. And that maybe to move your dinner time back by 15 minutes until you're back during the daylight. And notice pure hunger before you eat. So the Kaizen suggestion would be to do a body scan and check in with your body before you start to prep your meal. And that way you can also tap into what your body really needs instead of letting the brain make the decision. So this is healthier eating do's and don'ts. And you guys can print this, put this on the fridge for the week. One of the things I want to point out on this one is the shop or harvest from your body. And it goes to what I was just saying. It says many of us are trapped in our cognition, that we go through the grocery store thinking, this is good for me, I should buy this. Or, I think I need XYZ. And instead, I'd like to invite you guys to get into being tapped into the body. Doing that scan of the body and looking around do this in the produce section, not in the snack aisle, but, look around the produce section or look around the farmer's market and ask your body, what do I want? So the cue here says, what does your animal body want? It's taking the brain out of the body's decision-making process. Because the brain is its own thing. Remember, it's its own body when we talked about the koshas. So the thinking body has nothing to do with the physical body. What does the physical body need in order to really be nourished? Eat your ecosystem, get on a schedule, eat green, prepare your own food. We've talked about all of these. Healthier eating obstacles and breakthroughs. I want you to use this form this week. What are your crutch emotional eating foods or beverages? What are your crutch emotional eating routines or habits? So that would be your nighttime snacking. That would be your, consuming coffees and teas in between meals, in order to don't feel fatigue or be more productive. And then you have this side that says opportunities. What I want to change first to better nourish myself is. What I want to add in later once the above change is natural. What my ideal body nourishment looks like a year from now. So getting into that identity, getting into that miracle-mindedness, envisioning where you want to be and how you want to be acting towards food. Healthier eating intuition worksheet. We've done this limiting belief, deeper truth before. I want you guys to break it out again because I think you're going to notice yourself thinking and getting into this at a deeper level now. So the example of the limiting belief, I eat healthy, the deeper truth, I could start my day with a green smoothie instead of a bagel. So, why is I eat healthy limiting belief? Because if it's not true, like if we say, oh yeah, I eat pretty healthy, there's always room for improvement. So you can get into that deeper truth. Always, always, always revert to your weekly meal planner. If you haven't started using it yet, here's your big opportunity. And just a reminder from last week, your awareness is your best asset and your ultimate currency. Develop the power of your deep awareness. Scan into your body this week. See what you really need to be nourished. Develop your body's awareness, your body's ability to communicate to the brain instead of the brain telling the body what it wants and needs. And please use your worksheets and your resources, and please use your accountability partners and post on the forum about what your Kaizen move is this week towards healthier eating guidelines. Thank you, and namaste.